everyone. Welcome to the CHP Podcast. I'm Ariana. I'm your host as usual. Today I am with Pete Nelson. He is the owner and founder of SISU Saunas. You may have seen him on Cameron Haynes' podcast, the Keep Hammering Collective. You may have seen him on Nick Bear's podcast, or you may have seen us feature him as an athlete because he, in 2024, correct, you won the Antarctica 50K, like the first one they ever did.
Yes. So fun. The memories are incredible. And
In Antarctica.
it was outrageous. I got to spend it
Yeah.
with Dad and the trip of a lifetime for sure.
That's awesome. So again, you may have seen us talking about him, someone talking about him. Pete's awesome. Super incredible guy. I'm super excited to have you on, Pete. Obviously, since I've introduced you, is there anything else that you'd like to mention? Like, I know that you host a race in Northern Ohio, which is where you're based out of.
Yeah.
What time of year is that race? I'm assuming it's not in the winter.
Yeah, correct. So 2 years ago, we launched Hell on Hogsback, which is this charity race where 100% of the proceeds go to a cancer patient or two in need, depending on the amount of funds that we end up raising. And it became a race as a result of my dad's cancer diagnosis and then stroke, where he had to relearn how to walk. And context for my dad, my father has ran over 150 marathons or greater of distance in the last 12 years. And
Wow.
he's just an absolute savage, and very fortunate to have him, come along trips with me now with Sisu, because there was a moment there where we didn't think he was going to make another day. So Helen Hogsback, we hosted in Cleveland, Ohio, where I grew up. And it's a 12-hour endurance race. The 12 hours signifies the amount of hours that my dad was in surgery for his tongue cancer. And it's on this insane hill called Hogsback, and it's max reps up and down this hill for 12 straight hours. And this year we had 225 people show up, and it was incredible. It's just the best way to describe it. And my dad's a part of it each year. He ran 42 miles this year in 12 hours on that hill, nearly 9,000 feet of vert across those 12 hours for him.
Wow. I know some people listening to this podcast. Like, I know, for example, I don't know if he's run it yet, probably has, but we have a client and friend, Sam Hartman, who lives in Ohio,
Cool.
who loves vert. So I know, Sam, I'm calling you out. You have to do this race. But I know a couple of people that would be all about this. So I love that. So your dad, I know, even when I first met you and I chatted with you about the race, I know he's been super important to your running journey and your interest in running. Obviously, he ran the Antarctica 50K with you, and then I know he does work with you at SISU, correct? Like, he's influenced you a lot at SISU.
So it's really interesting. My father retired 2 years ago. He's 61, so he retired when he was 59, and he really just kind of tags along on trips, and it's just fun. So this past week we were in Minneapolis together, with the Minneapolis community, one of our ambassadors, having a good time, building out a unit with him, and my dad loves it, and it's selfishly a great way for me to be able to spend time with my father, but more importantly, it's I always look at the time that I spend with my wife, my kids, my family, and my best friends, the people that like I know are going to be in like the front row of my funeral. I want to spend as much time and invest as much into them as I possibly can. And so it's the easiest thing for me to be like, hey, Dad, every 3 months, 4 months, come on a trip with me. Let's get 2, 3 nights away from the fam, just us two, and just enjoy the fact that we get to do this. So
Yeah.
we always loop in workouts, runs, and go eat some good food. Obviously, there's a lot of sauna, and it's turned into this really fun way for us to be able to connect, unlike what we were doing, back before I was 18, 19, where
Yeah.
all of this was like basketball, school, and it was just a different time of life. So I get to really be kind of like best friends with my father, which is one of the coolest things to say.
I love that. That's so cool that you prioritize that, and so does he. I love that for both of you, and clearly that that work ethic and that sort of like focus on people is a huge part of what's made you so successful, right? Like, I know that the Sisu saunas, it's not just like you're shipped a box. Like, you guys build each one, correct? And then help them assemble them? Like, am I correct in saying that? You can please talk about it in more
Yeah, yeah,
detail, but like these things are handmade.
yeah. So the inception of Sisu came as a result of us being consumers of another sauna company. We purchased sauna. We liked the sauna, but there was a lot of things that we knew that we wanted to change. And what we ended up doing, we actually opened up a dealership through a different manufacturer. Saw a bunch of issues during COVID with that manufacturer, and decided like, hey, if we're going to do this, let's do it our own way, and let's create our own playbook. And so we actually decided to open up Sisu as people know it now back in 2022 on a trail run at 5:30 a.m. in the morning. Headlamps were out, the whole bit, and we decided, hey, the best way to go about this is let's do a U.S. sourced, U.S. made Amish handcrafted sauna company in Ohio. Let's have fast lead times and let's keep the quality where we know we want it to be. And so that's what we pulled the trigger on in August of 22. We got it off the ground, and our whole aim is to keep sauna not only very quality and simple focused, but also rooted in community. And that's the
Mhm.
most important thing is no matter what, when somebody invests into a Sisu, we know that they're going to forge grit and connection in that sauna and they're going to host with it. But more importantly, we want them to know it's like a timepiece and we stand by it, and we'll always do like what's right to make sure that the sauna experience is right for you. So um, that's like what we rest our laurels on. So our we do not assemble the saunas at this point yet. It's something that
Mhm.
we're working on in the future is to build out a nationwide install network. But we've made the installation process easy enough for two people to build it out across a half a day. And
Yeah.
I remember when I built my initial sauna prior to us pulling the trigger on this Amish handcrafted sauna company, it took me like legitimately 2 days, and that didn't even include the electric. So
Yeah.
I remember I was like pretty frustrated with the process. And again, I'm not saying that we've got a perfect company by any means. There's no perfect company, but I really feel like we're solving a lot of the things that we initially came into as with sauna consumers, and here we are now with Sisu 2 years later.
Yeah. It's like you really stepped into, I mean, you were a sauna consumer, so that was pretty easy from that perspective to notice the the glaring issues with being a sauna consumer. Because I've always thought about it this way. I mean, if you're setting up a sauna, you're setting up electric, water,
Yeah,
and you're building something, carpentry or similar. You know, that's a big ask for most people, and it's a dangerous ask on top of that. Like, there's a lot that can go wrong. So
for
just
sure.
focusing again on, like you said, the community aspect of it, but then also starting from the consumer's point of view. How can I make this easiest for you? How can I make this high quality? How can I support you ongoing? I think that makes such a huge difference in what people are willing to invest in, because they know that they're going to continue to get out of it what they want to get out of it for their lifetime, the amount of time that they have this sonnet, whatever, um, which is, I guess, super parallel to the way that you treat all your relationships and everything else. So I think that's just brilliant. Like, talk about a code of ethics.
It's the only thing that I know like I could go to my grave with. It's not money. It's none of it really. It's like my relationships and my values, and that's what I care most about. Everything else, I feel like we could take care of and figure out. But if I
Yeah,
lead and if our team leads with just doing the right thing as consistently and as well as we can, like I could live with that, and I could go to bed at night knowing that, and I'm happy about that. One of the things I'm really excited about actually for 2025 that we pulled the trigger on a couple times this year, but the full focus next year is we're actually giving quite a bit to veterans with PTSD next year. And so
awesome.
we've established a few different partnerships across the United States with veteran organizations, and we're highlighting one veteran every single month to gift a sauna to be able to help, not only like prevent their complications with PTSD, but also to be able to help reverse those. But again, do the two main things of grit and connection, the two things that I
Mhm.
know that help PTSD like no other. Coming from a military background, we had a commissioning class of 12, two of which have committed suicide. It's
Yeah.
just something that's like always weighed on my heart and our family's heart. And I'm really excited for CSU to be able to give in 2025. And that's a huge motivator for our whole team.
I I love that focus not only on providing an experience to consumers, but then finding a group that could really benefit from your product and then making sure that they have access to it. Because I think that's something that's often missed, but you would be surprised how many other people there are out there that are shopping for a sauna and they're like, oh wow, he's giving away a sauna to a veteran. I really care about that too. I'm definitely going to purchase this one. Like, this is where I want my money to go. I think we discount other people's values and beliefs the same way that we downplay our own as being important in the construction of a business or a lifestyle, or like I keep saying a code of ethics, not really like that, but like just morals by which you run your life. I think a lot of us are always kind of fearful to overly invest in them because it makes us seem, I don't know, there's always this like glorification of the hustle. Um,
Oh, for
but,
sure.
but being able to slow down and be like, actually, no, this is what I really care about. And even if it's more difficult, I'd rather invest that time and that energy in this and making this real, rather than sacrificing these things in order to have a faster reward over here, which I know won't make me as happy and won't make me as fulfilled. I think there are, as as weird as the environment is right now, I would say socially and culturally, I would say most people actually do feel very strongly about things the same way that all of us do. Like,
Yeah.
so I love that you're creating an atmosphere where that's promoted, supported, and you're giving people an option to actually buy into that themselves. So your background, we talked about how you were a sauna consumer, but I feel like we need to take a step back. Like, you've been lifting and you've been running for a while. That's no joke. And then you've done CrossFit in the past. You were a gym owner. You've done CrossFitty stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of what trajectory brought you, obviously military, talk me through your athletic kind of career and then how you ended up as a sauna consumer, kind of like what brought you to being like, yeah, I really A, need a sauna, and B, I believe in their use. And I think other people need to have access to them as well.
Certainly. So when I was 4, I had a basketball in my hand every single day, and I played ball all the way through into college. And in high school, started all 4 years of varsity um, at Lakewood High in Cleveland, Ohio. And that was my love. And I got introduced to fitness in there actually with P90X, which is, if you're like familiar with the old school chest and back, ab ripper X, like those were no joke hard workouts. Zero specificity to basketball though.
Yeah.
It actually like really did not improve my performance other than help me like gain weight. But all I have to say, that was my intro. And the coaches would often rely on me to be able to help train up our varsity team, JV team. We would often do like P90X like circuits in the weight room. It was really funny. Like when I think
Yeah.
back, I don't know. But I went to college at a small school in Kentucky where I got a ROTC scholarship as well as played college ball for that year called Center College. I dropped basketball like really quickly though because I wanted to really commit to the military. And so my first day of PT down there in Kentucky, we actually did it at a CrossFit gym, and that was like the hook, line, and sinker. I loved how it
Yeah.
made me feel. I couldn't believe how like out of breath I was the whole bit. It was just a hard, cool drink of the Kool-Aid, basically. And
Yeah.
so I got back home and was looking for a coach in the area. I was starting to like flirt with regionals a little bit back in the day, back when that was a thing for CrossFit. And I met my friend Tom, who owns Black Flag Athletics, who um, he hired me on early as a trainer. And then that's like where I started going up the ranks of wearing all the different hats, and then ended up co-owning it with him, and then actually sold my equity back to Tom a couple of years ago. But through that process, uh, believe it or not, when I was 17, I was just coming out of my senior year of basketball. My dad just got introduced to marathon running. He quit smoking cold turkey and he was always a great runner, but he just quit smoking cold turkey. He's like, I'm doing this. There's no ands or buts about it. Let's create a new addiction. And so he started pulling the trigger on some marathons. And then again, like when I was 17, he pulled the trigger on the Graveyard 100, which was this 100-mile race. And it started and ended in Corolla, which is in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And I crewed him the last 50 miles of that. and I'll never forget the pain that he was in. I won't forget the pain that I was in.
Yeah.
And I didn't train for it. He was way more trained than I was. And it just left this really lasting impact on me. And then 4 weeks later, I did a 50K on my birthday when I turned 18. And I got so sucker punched by that race. It wasn't even funny. And
Yeah.
so, like a lot of things, I kind of just went in, kind of raw dogged it. No, no training, just kind of rolled in and just wanted to see it all the way through. And that's when I started realizing, all right, if I need to be good at this, I need to start training. And so that's when I like really went into CrossFit. I was really being drawn toward that. I stayed in the CrossFit space for probably 6 to 7 years. Dabbled a couple times a year in some 50Ks just to keep me in 50K shape. But it wasn't really until maybe 3, 4 years ago, I would say 4 years ago, that I really committed to ultras specifically and took myself out of the CrossFit space.
Hmm.
And that's when I found you guys with Complete Home Performance, where I found the 50K training template. And that's what I use to run a few 50Ks, a 50 miler, this 60-mile race to Cedar Point here in the North Shores of Ohio from Cleveland, and then my first 100 as well. And so a lot of that is due to the periodization that you guys included. And I'm super, super grateful for that. And I feel like I've sent a lot of people to get to your guys' way to your website. So I'm really hoping a lot of people have bought your guys' templates from at least our friend group and community. So I did my first 100 4 years ago, and I remember DNFing multiple times at 100 until I finally completed that first 100.
Yeah.
And I was so obsessed with the outcome of completing 100 miles that I completely forgot why I was running in the first place. And
Hmm.
so I remember conceptualizing going into completing the Canal Corridor 100, what it would be like, what that call would be like to my dad, to be like, hey, I did it. Talk to my wife, the whole bit. And I crossed the finish line, and there was no wave of emotion. I was like, I just want to go to bed. I'm done. And and so I was always like, for years, I like fantasized about this crazy emotion that could potentially be of completing 100 miles. And in fact, it wasn't there. It was more so when I look back upon it, it was the journey that got me to completing 100 miles. I was really chasing after. That's what changed my life and changed my
Yeah.
demeanor, my work ethic, and the way I viewed my relationships, the whole bit. And so that's what I like to also equate to my business life is how do I take a similar approach, work ethic, and understanding of like the daily ins and outs to be able to produce this awesome outcome and effort that I'm looking to get from running that I could also get from business and my family and my faith, the whole bit. So
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for your guys' templates getting me trained up for it, but even more so, I just realized that like people get so outcome based and they're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And then they forget that
Mm.
it's actually the journey and the process that is what you're chasing after.
Yeah. I think that's such an incredible statement to make because I think, especially in the hybrid space, there's this tendency to want to prove that you are hybrid and prove that you can do this crazy thing or that crazy thing. And I think doing those challenges is all well and good. It's fine. They're fun. Some people have done some really incredible stuff. But I think when I work with clients, especially, and they're like, I want to do an ultra or I want to do a powerlifting meet and something, super endurance. One of the big talks you have to have with people, more so on the endurance side, is like you have to be the kind of person who's going to wake up early or stay up late to get this training done every single day.
Yeah.
Because that 100 miler, yeah, it's 24 hours plus of straight running, but it's just one day. To get there is going to be months and months and months of needing to show up and do the thing for this future. And it's when you complete that race, you have to be aware of all of the work you've put in and be proud of all of that work and be connected to all of that work because a lot of people experience like post race depression and post race blues
Yeah.
because they didn't get the high that they thought, or they did, but it was brief and then it's over. And now they're like, what? is my life. Like, you have to become the person that would do a 100 miler or can do a 100 miler, not just do the 100 miler. I don't know. It's such a subtle difference in thinking about it during the training process, but if you don't address it during the training, sometimes it can get away from you.
I think the reality is every day I wake up, and I would say 80% of the time I don't have necessarily the motivation to go for my run.
Yeah.
Most of the time I would have the motivation to like go lift because I really enjoy lifting, but most of the time I would say 80% of the time, even though I identify myself truly as a runner, and
Yeah.
I love how I feel halfway to later on in the run and after the run, it's hard. It's inconvenient. It's you have to schedule for it. I've got 2 kids, so I've got more excuses now than I did, a few years ago. So,
Yeah.
um, I mean, the reality is I don't want to run a lot of times, but I do it because I know how it makes me feel, and I do
Mhm.
it because it makes me better in so many different aspects. But the actual getting started for it is still a chore. Goggins is known on record, and I'm not going to say like I'm like the biggest Goggins guy, but like he has got this mindset, and he's been on record to say that he's still to this day being quote unquote like the hardest man, in the U.S. or in the world. He still struggles to put on his shoes every day.
Yeah.
And when people know that and understand that the reality is that you completing your 100 miles is actually going to be rooted in the daily battle of just getting started, man,
Yeah.
I will tell you what, you will complete your 100 if you could just do this really, really
Yeah.
well day in, day out, because it just mentally hardens your mind. And I think that that's what we're really after. And now I'm really excited to go for my run after this podcast because now I'm like, here we go,
Yeah. It's hearing you say that about having, more excuses than ever as a parent. I've talked about this with a couple coaches in the past, and I think on one of our previous podcasts, but just how being an elite athlete or being a professional athlete, in my mind, yes, you have to work very hard. No doubt. The workload is immense. It doesn't mean that they're any more motivated, but oftentimes when you're being paid to do something
Yeah,
versus working a job and having kids and things like that, there are way fewer barriers. And I mean, often for me, I find that it's my clients that have quote unquote the most excuses. They have kids, their kids are sick, they work a job, there's a commute, they have a wife or a husband that they need to maintain a relationship with. It's a lot to keep tabs on top of everything else. And then how do you carve out the time to do your training? How do you make those decisions day in and day out on top of all of the other decisions you have to make? Um, I think there's I think in some ways that's almost harder because it's such delayed gratification for them. It's
sure.
so delayed. It's
Yeah,
day in, day out, monotony, and it's not going to feed your soul every day. It's going to make you feel better, but it's not always going to make you feel like your best. But you have to do it, and I think it's those sort of unsung heroes at the intermediate level that really impress me. Obviously, elite athletes impress the shit out of me. Not
sure.
they're incredible, but it's sort of the intermediates I think that are just they're passionate about participating in sport, but they don't have an easy track to get there. Um, I think,
Certainly.
man, the toughness these people exude when they get this stuff done. Um, I think that's so important. Like, I just tell people all the time, I'm like, just commit to a 5K. It's not impressive per se, but it's going to get you doing the things that you keep saying you want to do
Right.
because now you're committed, and that's huge. Like, just keep doing them.
Yeah, for me, I always like having at least 2 things on the calendar each year that scare me a bit.
Yeah,
This year was Antarctica. Not necessarily the race; it was more so like the boat ride. I'm not a big like boat guy by any means. So like
that's
going
a long
across,
boat ride.
yeah, like the Drake Passage is no joke. So
Yeah,
being able to do that and have a successful outcome, I was pumped about. And then I did my first road marathon this year after running only ultras for a very long time. And that scared me a bit too, because I didn't put a massive emphasis at all on tempo, threshold, um,
Hmm.
this speed work that I just kind of neglected. And I would say the first 10 weeks absolutely destroyed me. It was a chore for me to start the runs each day because I was like, "Oh, this is gonna suck."
Yeah.
But then you work through it and you adapt, and then you become a better runner. And so my
Hmm.
first marathon I've ever ran was at Erie this year. I ran a 3:03. So now my goal is another marathon, and more than likely April. If not, it'll be September. Depends on a couple other events I was thinking about doing.
Yeah.
But my goal would be to go sub 255. And the thing for me is like I never want to go into these. I don't want to look like a runner. I want to look like kind of show up looking a certain way, you know.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
I ran that at a 2:08 this year, and my goal for the next marathon would probably be at like 200 to 205, and
Uh-huh.
just come in lean, but just I want to be a hoss. You know what I mean? Like selfishly, I
Oh
want to
yeah.
be as I like step the line. You know, uh,
Uh-huh.
so that's like my selfish goal. But piggybacking off of what you're saying too, with the demands for even the intermediate athletes, and a lot of elite athletes face the same ones, especially with, at least the way I approach it. I've got like my 5 buckets of life, and like I want all of them to be thriving. Now,
Yeah.
I know there's seasons of life where like some of them may not be thriving as much as others. But all that to say, like kids, relationships, work, all the other obligations, um, they express urgency. So like the more you have on your plate, the more you have to be urgent in like being more decisive, quicker to make decisions, understanding where to delegate or where to shed weight, where to say no more often. And that's something I really admire with the intermediate athletes. And then a lot of the elite athletes that I know that are in a similar boat, they're
Oh yeah.
even better at saying no. And they're even better at just understanding like where they're going to spend their time and where they need help with so they could best show up on the things that really matter to them. And that
Hmm.
was a huge shift in the last 24 months for me, was understanding like the role of delegating to like the right people who will gladly accept and like run with the things that I do not do well with.
Yeah.
And that way I could spend more time doing the things that I love than the things that I'm strong at and my training.
Yeah. So many more people than you think will happily help you.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
so many more. I mean, I'm eldest daughter, and my brain is always set on like, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. And like it's been so hard for me after having a baby to just not do it
Yeah.
and ask for help or even just let it not get done and like just adjust my priority. That's been so weird. I like to say I'm getting better at it, but it's going to probably take about 10 years. But
But
yeah,
I will never, I don't care anybody, like, we'll never be perfect at it. Like, it's always going to be a struggle. There's like new levels of like problem sets that like different ages with kids that we end up having to face. And along the way, like always keeping being a baseline athlete, no matter what,
yeah,
is a non-negotiable, at least for my wife and I. My wife and I,
yeah,
or my wife actually, she just finished up day 116 in a row of at least 3 miles a day running,
that's
and
incredible.
she just PR'd her half marathon. Again, this is like pre and post kids, like all time PR this past weekend down in South Carolina. So it's like really motivating for me to see how she knows how to delegate to me, and vice versa, for
Mhm.
her to be able to get her time in as well. And so like for my one of my whole goals in life is to protect my wife and to make her thrive. So like protecting her time, protecting like what she cares about so she could go do more of the things that she loves. Otherwise, like it's not going to be a pretty day at home, like, so I
I was
think,
about to say, like, God bless you for that because
yeah,
I think you have to be fierce about it because there's a lot that can slide under the table.
for
It
sure.
just gets missed. There's so much that just gets missed, and it's not malicious. It's not
Right.
like it's benign, but it's so easy to slip into kind of forgetting um, how much of a default parent, let's say, um, their time is just sort of eaten up, just taken,
Absolutely.
just
And
gone.
And it's like wash, rinse, repeat. And it's one of the reasons why the US has like a declining healthscape is because there's so much more things that are at our tips that are like so convenient that are not health
Mhm.
related. So my wife and I, Paige and I, just always remind ourselves that what we are trying to do is not meant to be convenient and it's not meant to be easy. And there's a reason why everybody's not doing it. So
Yeah.
if we have that in our head, it's every reason for us to do the exact lifestyle that we want to carry out.
Yeah, sort of like, okay, I'm challenging myself, so why am I expecting it to not be challenging?
Right. Right.
So, wait, when this gets hard, I should be turning into it instead of trying to turn away from it. I'm actually succeeding when this gets really difficult.
Yeah. And I'm always reminded too, the best stories I've ever had in my life that I get to share are the ones where things go like way off plan,
Yeah.
or when things just again are they get really choppy. When things go according to plan, it's not a great story. More often, I found that with family, my personal endeavors, work, the whole bit. So we all kind of buy into
Yeah.
that mantra.
Yeah, when things start to get hairy, you're like, "All right, let's just start taking notes because this is gonna be a really good story at Thanksgiving dinner." Like, let's
Like,
just let's go.
for sure, I completely agree.
So, knowing that this is kind of your training perspective, which I love. Thank you for letting us in on that. How do you use sauna and, like, let's say contrast baths in your own recovery? Is it like a daily thing for you? Is it more, do you have it turned up hot enough to challenge you? Is it more of a meditative thing? Like, how do you personally use sauna, and do other people use theirs differently?
Yeah, really good question. And I would say to start the answer is yes to all of the above. And I like to view my sauna like I do my training. I don't program my sauna to where I'm going to have like an intense day, a moderate day, a light day, a zone two day. I really listen to my body and understand what type of threshold I'm looking to hit inside the sauna when it comes to heat. The research that comes back is the most the sauna with the most amount of efficacy is the one between 176 degrees and 214 degrees. So that's like the pocket of heat that we're looking for because that's the type of heat stress that will elicit all the benefits that everybody's touting about out there on sauna. So for me, I don't typically sauna every single day. I would love to, but the reality is that's not going to happen given like everything I'm trying to do with my family and my other obligations. So typically I'll probably do like 4-ish days a week, sometimes 5 if I'm like really on my game. Baseline, no matter what, I'm getting 15 to 20 minutes, probably around 190 to 200 degrees. It's hot enough by the end for me to be questioning why I'm in the sauna still, and that's kind of
Mm,
that's always kind of a response that I'm going for. A lot of times when it's just me in the sauna, there's a level of solitude that develops a ton of grit and mental toughness that I think a lot more people need to experience if they've never been in a like a hot sauna solo before. But typically, like I'll hit a wall around like 15 minutes and then I'll fight through for 5 and then I come out and I feel incredible. Uh, Something that we are working on going into next year is we're very knee deep in an R&D cold plunge for Sisu, and I'm very excited about that. It'll be a steel interior with a wood surround, and it'll be kind of like a one of a kind type of product. And it's been really fun being able to utilize that as in cohesion with the sauna. So I've been doing quite a bit more of cold plunging. So I'm I typically will go into the cold plunge anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes at a time. And if I'm really on my game, I'll probably do 2 to 3 times a week of a full contrast setup or a full
mhm.
contrast session. So of the 4 to 5 times a week that I'm doing sauna, 2 to 3 of them would be a full contrast, and that would be 3 rounds, 15 to 20 minutes inside the sauna at anywhere from 185 to 205 degrees. And then I'll go into the cold plunge for 1 to 2 minutes. I'll repeat that 3 times. If it's at night, I will finish on hot. If it's during the day, I'll finish on cold. And
Smart.
that's typically the way it goes for me. I will not
Mhm.
do cold immersion right after a strength session. typically I'll just reserve sauna and cold for their own session for the day. And it's often
Hmm.
when either it's my wife and I or when we have kids over.
Thank you for sharing that with us too, especially with the protocol. I think that's really helpful. Um, Saunas have so much good research backing their use for such a wide variety of reasons. You got the mental, you've got the physical. I mean, even it's so fascinating the way that heat stress can elicit very similar adaptations that you would see from altitude training. So they can reduce altitude sickness if you're training for something at altitude, um, or reduce the chances of you getting altitude sick. But I think it's just so fascinating the variety of application for a sauna, and then adding in the actual contrast bath, which, at least from what I've seen from research, it does seem that the cold plunge, when it's not being utilized specifically for the mental side of it, um, used within a contrast bath setup, almost seems like it's more effective from what I've read, um, than just doing a cold plunge alone. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it just seems like the research seems to bear out that contrast baths are actually more effective for recovery than just a cold plunge and then you hop out and go home.
Yeah, I think that there's so many variables that go into how beneficial a cold plunge is alone, sauna is alone versus the two. I do know that there's a
Hmm.
lot more research that still needs to be conducted on contrast. That I think that's going to continue to come out amazing, much like all the
Yeah.
research that has come out currently on it. I do know that um, specifically when it comes to like anecdotal evidence and based off of like what we're seeing, there's so much relationship driven benefit from
Hmm.
contrast. And it's one of the reasons why in Scandinavia, specifically Finland, the birthplace of sauna, where they've been doing this for a very, very, very long
Bathhouse,
time.
kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. And for every two people in Finland, there's one sauna. So most homes have two saunas. They have one inside and one outside.
Yeah.
And this is one of the reasons why they're one of the happiest nations in the world. And it's this constant that they have in their life where they get to do hard things with people that they love.
Yeah.
And it's also a great way for them to be able to meet new people. And it's a great alternative to going out to the bars and drinking and hosting and just going to the coffee shop. I think people are like ready for that change. And saunas
Hmm.
starting to become that. And so,
Yeah.
like anecdotally speaking, you can't necessarily quantify the efficacy of a relationship, but if there's one thing that I know is lacking in the United States, it is great quality relationships, and I know that that's what sauna cold plunge does do.
Yeah.
But when it comes to recovery, oh my gosh, yeah, like recovery, athletic performance, aerobic, just like aerobic baseline, it's huge.
Hmm.
There's even amazing benefit to sauna with Alzheimer's dementia. It's starting to like
Really?
actually stave off the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. I mean, they're starting to see that Alzheimer's and dementia could be stemmed all the way back 30 years prior to like the initial incidents, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, so the fact that like they're starting to see like the delayed effects or even like completely removing the effects of Alzheimer's dementia is huge because I know it's a huge fear in the United States right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Um,
it's massive. I mean, that's my
yeah.
both of my grandmothers um,
And,
experienced it, and it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal.
yeah.
Um,
It's really
I've
interesting, like all the things that are coming out. I mean, again, Alzheimer's dementia is obviously like huge, but the other thing that I know that is obviously like really lacking is the quality of sleep in the United States.
Yeah.
I argue like my best nights of sleep are often the ones where I saunaed just prior. I'm out, I'm knocked out for the count for the night, and I wake
Hmm.
up and I feel incredible. As long as I'm getting the right electrolyte supplementation, the right amount of water during that
Yeah.
session. Um, I think that it's low hanging fruit, low barrier for entry for most people outside of like the financial commitment, depending on like if they're going to a studio, a gym, or if they have it at their home. But it's a great way to be able to increase sleep. If we increase sleep, mood's better, you're easier to hang around. And I'm also then encouraged because I'm sweating more. If I'm more
Mhm.
sedentary, it encourages me to want to go work out. So
Yeah.
I think
Because you're
it's
already
kind of
sweaty.
it's a catch all for a good healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. I personally, um, I do not have access to a sauna right now, but I found in the past I have heat intolerance. So it was really useful for me to start going into a sauna, especially when I lived in Southern California, before it got hot,
Yeah.
just to kind of prep myself, even just for there isn't too much I can do physically to be less heat intolerant.
Yeah.
Um, but becoming less panicky about it and becoming more capable of managing my output and mentally staying calm, because I've had heat exhaustion and heat stroke several times, and there's always that feeling of like impending doom
Yeah.
that gets you, and it creates this sort of cycle of anxiety where I start to get slightly hot and my heart rate starts to go slightly up and I start to just panic. And that's not helpful when you're an athlete.
Right.
It's
Right.
not like if it's 75 degrees out, I should be fine. And like maybe I'm struggling with the heat a tiny bit, but panicking about it is for sure going to send my heart rate up. So for me, it was really useful, even just on that side of things. I'm not sure, again, how much I'd ever be able to adapt to heat, but mentally knowing how to compartmentalize and mentally knowing where that line was of, hey, this is okay. I'm going to get out of the sauna and I'm actually going to be totally fine. I'm going to have some water. I'm going to cool
Yeah.
off and I'm still going to be able to enjoy the rest of my day. Allows me to do that easy run, keep my heart rate down, even when it's a little hotter than I'd like. That was super useful for me going into a hot season and then even trying to keep that either mental adaptation or similar going throughout the winter time.
Certainly.
Because it starts to heat up again, and then you're like, "Oh my god, this is the worst."
We
Why is my heart rate 190?
I love it. We down in we went to this event called Running Man this year. It was so fun, and
Yeah.
we like one of the we put together the world's largest sauna. It was a 500-person sauna down there, and then we also had all of our units there. It was super fun. We got to take an RV down with a bunch of our guys, but I knew going into the event that I wanted to do like something fun, kind of like off the cuff. So we put together this like makeshift saunathon, which ended up being you run a half marathon, but with the inclusion of sauna in between. So the way it works
Mhm.
is every hour on the hour, and to start, you run 4 miles, and once you complete 4 miles, then you sit in the sauna. Your total
Okay.
score is the highest amount is the total amount of minutes accumulated in the sauna for you to complete a
Wow.
half marathon. So it encourages you to run faster so you can sit in the sauna longer, but then you enter the sauna at a higher heart rate. So then you have to
Yeah.
like sit there and suffer for a while. Um, it was no joke. And you like come out of the sauna each time with like these super heavy legs because you just like booked it for 4 miles. And then
Yeah.
you're get super, super like pulled with blood and you're coming out and you're like, oh my gosh. And I just remember it being really gritty the last mile and a quarter or so to finish out. And it was memorable. But that's like a good challenge if anybody's looking to if you have a sauna at home, try it out. Let me know it. Let me know how you do.
Yeah. Seriously, and please drink your electrolytes.
Yeah,
Um,
please. Yeah, please drink your electrolytes.
um, to your point about community, it's something that we're trying to do a better job of promoting as an online company, which is difficult, next year, because I find that especially in the hybrid space, and I say hybrid loosely, um, it's really hard. People train alone a lot. Even if you started in CrossFit, you can't really do CrossFit workouts because they're excessively fatiguing,
Yeah,
or you can't do them too often. It's difficult to do a run club because maybe the pace they're going isn't achievable for you, or it's just on the wrong night and your programming won't work out. Like, there's just so many people who train completely alone. Um, and I think they believe that they're alone then. Like, they believe that they're the only person pursuing their goals, or they believe that they're the only person failing. They believe that they're the only person struggling who's trying to do what they're doing. And that's very human. Um, but I think when you sit down with someone else and you struggle next to them, which I think was kind of the biggest benefit of CrossFit, um, and I love that it's spawned a bunch of other group fitness classes because I think that's fantastic. Love me a group fitness class. But when you suffer next to someone, it like resets your brain, it recalibrates it. You're like, oh, I'm normal.
hmm
Suffering is normal. We're okay. and it becomes less negative in your mind and you fixate less on it. You start to struggle a bit and you're just like, oh yeah, that's just being a person. Or like you said, like I'm choosing to do something difficult. So yeah, it's gonna feel pretty difficult. That's good. That's okay. And it helps you reset when you're just by yourself. You're like, is our people can't be having as hard of a time as I am. Like nobody else is having as hard of a time as I am. It's just this like spiral. And then the second you hang out with or go for a run with someone else, and you see that they're breathing heavy and they're barfing at the end, or they're having just as much of a hard time as
Yeah.
you are, or a harder time, they're pushing harder, and you go, oh shit, I'm not trying hard enough.
Right. Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
for
pushing.
sure. I feel that. I really think that for me, I lift no matter what once a week with a friend or a group of guys at our home gym here. It's non-negotiable, it keeps me accountable. So like
Yeah,
when I like if I work out with them, I subconsciously the rest of the week know like I need to show back up for them next week.
yeah,
And so that means I have to stay on my game because I don't want to show up weaker next week. And the
yeah,
same thing with my running. I no matter what run with one person on a quality day when I know that it's going to be this harder effort because that makes me like stay focused on those like easier runs, zone 2, zone 3 days.
yeah.
So I can best show up to make sure I don't come back weaker as a runner the following week.
Hmm.
And community is so important. The accountability more than anything is massive, and you can't like put value on like a
No,
great relationship.
yeah, like you said, it's really difficult to. There is research where people are trying to quantify the positive effects of relationships, and it's very positive. Um, Actually, weirdly aside, um, one of the ways that this played out hugely for me was when I was researching childbirth, um, and the explosion of doulas in the United States and other countries is largely because the research shows that when there's someone else in the room with the mother who is a purely support person, it doesn't have to be another woman, but it just needs to be someone who's educated in birth and who is fully supportive of them. It can be their partner, but it seems to be better when it's not their partner. Like it's not an expectation that they're going to put on their partner. Um, there's like 30% less complications,
That's
which is a
so
massive
interesting.
number.
Isn't that
It's
incredible how
massive.
intelligent the body is to
Yeah,
know that like
that
I'm
you're like
good, I'm
safe.
secure.
Yeah,
My wife, she's incredible. She went into both labors extremely healthy. Both times she got diagnosed with preeclampsia during
me
labor.
too. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
So like then she's like we're sitting there in the hospital room many days longer than she wants to, and it's
Yeah.
like it's
Oh,
something that
word.
we work on together to like it's kind of wild. And I think about me and my role in that situation. Like my whole role is to make sure like she's comforted, secure, ready to roll. That way she could best show up when she needs to.
Yeah.
But there's some things where to me like that makes complete sense. I'm not a doc. I'm far from a doctor. I'm also far from another person that knows anything about childbirth. Like having a doula or midwife, somebody that like is there to like be a um, your fan for the day, if you will.
Mhm.
Like,
And support the father as well.
yeah,
Like someone to support you so that you can support her, like just a support person.
yeah.
Yeah, if you ever are curious, the research on that is fascinating.
I
Um,
think that we just need to create more doulas for training, though. You know what I mean? So, like,
yeah,
you know
for
what I mean?
life.
Like who's who's your doula in the gym? You know what I mean?
It's your bro. It's your bro where you walk in, he goes, "Hey, big man," and you're like, "I know." Like that's your
For
that's
sure,
your deal.
for sure.
Um, that's brilliant. So as we wrap up, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about, and or any sort of advice that you would want to impart upon people before you exit, where you're like,
Two loaded questions right there.
mhm,
We covered a lot of really good bases today. Um, I think the most important message that I ever like want to extend into the world is I'm not I don't identify like as a hybrid athlete, as a business owner. Like my whole goal is to be like a five pillar man where I'm super rooted in my faith, my family, my fitness, my work, and like have a financial well-being to be able to give. And so
Mm,
like I'm hyper focused on that.
yeah.
And my goal is to, I'm not trying to get more people to live my life, my lifestyle. That's like, that's a losing battle, but it's my goal to be able to like help people become more rounded, not just through like one aspect, like with work or entrepreneurship. Um, like my whole goal is to just get more people in their like cross section of like fulfillment and purpose and skill set. And that's like what I'm really enamored with. And it's fun, like within our business, within my family, each aspect is to be able to like help, bring out the best in people. And that's something I'm like, I feel really called to do. Um, so that's like a message I want to leave. And then second, like exactly what we were hitting at before, the realization that training is never necessarily convenient, even if you time block for it, even if you got the perfect training plan, you got the best coach, the whole bit. So just understanding that if you just show up every day and just get started, that is the best thing you could possibly do.
Mhm.
Um, the rest will often take care of itself. And people are always looking for like that new sexy training program. More often than not, it's just like you showing up and doing like the basics and the simple things really well every day will carry you on as an athlete and so many other aspects of life. So I would say like those are like the two messages.
Well, they're perfect. And I love that. And I also love your, I would say, rejection of single labels. So I think that's incredibly important for health and incredibly important for being a fully realized human being or fully realizing themselves ongoing human being. Um, when you define yourself as one person or one type of thing, or you label yourself, inevitably something's gonna get hard, or it's gonna take a back seat, or and if you have nothing else,
Yeah.
that's a really difficult position to be in, and you can kind of get ahead of it by deciding that you are multifaceted and deciding ahead of time that you are multiple things and you have multiple things that fill your cup and allow you to give back. So I think that's quite possibly some of the best advice that anyone could receive ever. So thank
Well,
you.
I think that I kind of just like realized that I'm not looking to be world class at any one of those. I want to be like exceptional, like great at those.
Yeah.
That's going to require a lot of work. But if I'm trying to be like the best of the best at it, like there's going to be multiple buckets in my life that are not going to be filled, and that's not
Mhm.
okay with me. And I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
So
No, that's brilliant. If people want to follow you personally, where's the best place to do that? Instagram.
yeah, I would say Instagram is where I'm very active. It's at Peter Nelson II. I'm the second. Um, and I am on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook underneath the same handles. Um, we just launched a really awesome Sisu Origins film. If you haven't watched it, highly recommend it. You can just YouTube us there. I'm trying to build a little bit more of a YouTube presence there. But I enjoy the creation, but I'm in like this pocket where I'm like, I'm just going to authentically post when I feel like it, when my creative juices are going. And if they're not, I'm not going to post. I'm not trying to trick the algorithm.
Yeah.
I just want to share the story. So I'll probably post, a few times a week. I'll be active on my stories and that's it. But I'd love for you to, follow along there. And then you can follow Sisu at Sisu_sauna on Instagram. Same handles across all the board. And then SISULifestyle.com.
Perfect. Perfect. And that way people know where to go to purchase a sauna if they would like to.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Pete. It's been amazing talking to you again. You're such a great individual, I think, from so many different perspectives. It's just really cool to get to chat with you and see that you really are actually just chill. And, like, I feel like everyone uses the word authentic so much,
Yeah,
but that really does define you. And I think that's incredible um, and just really cool. So I'm excited to have you on. Hopefully, we'll have you on in the future.
for
I'd like
sure.
to be able to come out and spend some time with you as well. It would be really cool. I don't know if I'll be fit enough for that 12 hours of that race, but I sure do love running uphill. So
We do have like a 3 hour and 6 hour option too. So just know that that's
close enough.
totally, yeah.
Close enough. More time for breaks in between. Gosh darn
Yeah.
it.
There's, thank you so much for the opportunity. This has been great.
Awesome. Thank you.
For sure.